Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your coach, Tom Crean.
Let's hear it for the pep band, please. What a great job. Did you like the video? Would you sign if you were a recruit watching that? Good, because we try to show it to them. I want to thank Aaron Weaver from our office and Mike Santa and the group that helps put things like that together. And that's what I really would like tonight to be about. It is informal, but at the same time, as real life as we can get it. I don't get an opportunity, or I don't make the opportunity as much anymore because there's just not the time to be out and about and as much to speak. But to come and do this, I can only tell you that if I really had a bucket list, this would be on it. And to get a chance to come in here and speak to this group and to speak in this incredible auditorium amongst the greatest students and fans in the country. But I want to make sure that I cover some things that are going on with us that are important to the season, are important to remember about where we've come from, to talk about just how incredibly glorious the tradition of Indiana basketball is because of the former players and coaches, and because of the people like you, because of your parents, because of your grandparents, because of your aunts and uncles, your neighbors, your teachers, your family doctors, your insurance salesmen, you name it, all the people that have made Indiana basketball the happening that it's been for decade after decade. But at the same time, all of you that are in here right now, whether you're a freshman, whether you're a senior, whether you're a grad student, whether you're coming from out of town, like I know we have some, whether you live in this community or somewhere in this area, you are part of a great, great renaissance in this country when you look at what happened in here, all right, over 4.5 years ago, to look at where it is at today. And we're not where we want to be yet. We're not where we're going to be, but we're a lot further along than most thought we could get to after everything that happened 5 years ago. I want to talk about our team. I want to talk about their work ethic. I want to talk about what we're doing now, what we've done in the summer, what we did starting really a year ago, March, after spring break ended, and we were coming off the end of our season, and what clicked for us to help us become so much better, and to get our mindset and our work ethic and our competitive nature, and to get all those things to come out. And I also want to leave enough time to make sure that I do the best I can at answering questions. There'll be some, obviously, maybe I can't answer. I can't talk about recruiting. I think most of you know that. And then I also want to leave enough time, because I know we've got some studying to get done tonight, right? Or is it just the night of Kirkwood Avenue? Which is, but we're going to leave enough time to be out in the lobby to take pictures, sign autographs, and get a chance to visit and still get you out of here before midnight. So just joking. I want to thank my wife, Joni. I'm not sure exactly where she's sitting, but I want to thank her for coming tonight. More importantly, I want to thank her for being the mother to our 3 children that she is. And it's dawned on me recently that I don't get enough opportunity to talk about that. And that's my own fault, because, and I was asked a question. I spoke at a Kiwanis luncheon today on campus, and somebody asked about, what's the conversation like with my brother-in-laws? I mean, is there a lot of, do we share a lot of thoughts? Do we share a lot of ideas? And the answer is yes to all of that. But really where it comes down to is there's nobody that runs the family like Joni, Jim, and John's mom and dad, Jack and Jackie. And Jack got the greatest honor 2 days ago when Jim and his wife Sarah had an 8-pound, 8-ounce, 21-inch, 13-day early baby boy that they named Jack. So that's a big deal. But I also said that there's nobody that I gain more from, and there's nobody that has a better understanding of mixing life, sports, business, reading people, reading situations, and absolutely being the best mother and wife that anybody could possibly ask for, and that's my wife, Joni. So I am extremely proud. Extremely proud to partner with her and work with her. But she runs the show when it comes to raising our 17-year-old daughter, Megan, our 13-year-old son, Riley, and our 7-year-old daughter, Ainsley. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I say that because family is something that is one of the most overused and undervalued things out there. And there's statistics I could recite and bring up for the next 2 hours about where families and communication and togetherness and all those things come in. You don't need to hear that. What you do need is what I need every once in a while. You need to be reminded that your family, irregardless if it's the straight mom, dad, apple pie baseball family, or if it's a dysfunctional family, or if it's a broken family, or you don't even have your parents or your grandparents around to tell them how much you care about them. Something we ask every one of our campers to do, and I've been doing it for a long, long time, and going all the way back to the Marquette days, is on that first day of camp and on that last day of camp, we always ask them, I'll go around the room, go around the gym and ask who paid for this camp on their own. And invariably, you're gonna find someone. You're gonna find someone that did enough lawn mowing or did enough cleaning or did something. Or you'll find the person, well, I had to pay half of it, so I had to save this, and my grandma paid the other half. You're rarely gonna find in a camp, you're not, if you find 1%, that's a big thing. You're rarely gonna find 1% of your camp that paid for it on their own. Everybody else had somebody send them there. Everybody else had somebody, whether it was a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a grandmother, a grandfather, a significant person in their family, a scholarship. Maybe they couldn't afford it. Maybe they're coming from a situation where their families don't have that money. Somebody got them there. And the thing that we ask them, on the first day and the last day, is let that person or those people know that brought you to this camp that you appreciate it, that you're not going to take it for granted. Because we're going to run this camp with those people in mind. We're not going to run this camp with you in mind, knowing that you just got dropped off and thinking, well, somebody just decided to pay X amount of dollars so you could come and be babysat for the week or just have some pizza or take some bad shots. No, we're going to coach you. We're going to coach you with the people that brought you. We may not know them by name. We may not know them by face, but we know they're there. They paid for you. They allowed you to have this opportunity. They sacrificed something to get you here. Now, you think about where you stand. You think about where you sit. You think about being at this university. I'm sure we have people that have earned scholarships in here. I'm sure we have people that have had to pay their own way to be able to afford to go to this university. I'm sure there are people in here that had something left to them, or a grandmother or grandfather who maybe is not with them any longer, but wanted to see them get that education. My grandfather, when I was a young kid, he put together something with a small stock, Detroit Edison. And back when he did this, when I was born in 1966, my mom would tell me this story, that he thought by investing in this stock that it would pay for anything that I ever wanted to do in college. And that thing just kept making money. I couldn't get it out. Now, I tried a couple times, but I couldn't get the money out. And when I was 18, and my grandpa, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. I was born in 66, he died in 73. But I was around him enough to know that he loved his grandchildren, myself and my sister. But I learned a great lesson when I was 18. That money that he had thought was going to pay for all of my education, all right, it was gone. It was gone before we ever bought books. It was gone with the 12 credit hours that I got. And I went to community college. I didn't go to a four-year school right off the bat. I went to community college because there was no way I understood the value of education while I was growing up in high school. There's no way I did. I understood the value of basketball and sports. I understood the value of Miami Vice and Dallas and all those kind of things on a Friday night to watch, but I didn't understand the value of education. And I learned a lesson back then that then it became it became my family, or it became me working throughout that school year to help pay for that. And I learned that lesson. And I think about that as I look at our players that are on scholarship. And I think about that when I look at our players that are walk-ons. They're gonna get coached the same way. Just like those campers that come in. They're gonna get coached, and they're gonna get pushed, and they're gonna get driven because somebody allowed them to come. You're the same person. You're the same person, you're just a little bit older. No matter how you got here, somebody opened that door. Somebody paved that way. Somebody created that future. That scholarship that you get, that scholarship that gives you X amount of dollars here and X amount of dollars there. Somebody did something to earn that. Somebody did that to create that. And to me, that means, and I'm gonna get into basketball here in a second, believe me, but when you're here, you need to go at it every day that the person that helped allow that, or the hard work that you put into it, and you're trying to scrap to make ends meet, and you've got to have this job in the summer, and you've got to work construction here, and you've got to build there, and your mother or your father have got to continue to work to allow you to come. You've got to work like that every day that you're here, every day, because it's getting harder and harder and harder to count on a future. But people that come to Indiana University, people that make this the third largest alumni base in the United States, people that make this the world-renowned education that it is, people that make this and teach in this and have been a part of the 180 plus majors, the 330 plus degrees, the over 4,000 classes, they did it too. They did it too. And it's the same thing with our team right now. Every one of those players, some of the older ones, they've been through it. They weren't necessarily here for the fire that started in 2008, but they had to live through the rubble that we had to go through once that fire started to settle and say, okay, now we've got to get through this. Now we've got to get through this big, gigantic mess that none of us had any idea we were walking into, that none of the players had any idea they were walking into, that the administration couldn't have, beyond their wildest dreams, imagine it was going to get to the point that it did. And certainly the students of Indiana University and the fans of this program couldn't have seen it. But we all got in there and we dug out of that rubble together. We all did. We all did. And those of you that are just coming in and you see a grad student this year that still has tickets and was one of the leading people, see, in 2008, we lost half of our student body. And as you know, right now, it's capped off at 12,400. And it had to be capped off because the bursar, because it became so much easier, all right, through what Fred Glass did, to get it to be where you could sign up for your tickets without having to come in to the ticket office, drop off a check. You were able to do it so much easier. Well, that bursar, all right, to understand exactly what they needed to do, they needed a hard count. They needed to know, okay, here's how many people we're gonna have, here's how many games they're gonna get, because this is what we've got to charge. All right, back in 2008, we were sitting around 4,000 students. We lost half of our student body. So there's some that are still here as grad students. There's some that might still be here in the 5th year. Maybe somebody took a semester off. Same thing with the juniors, the seniors, the sophomores. They've lived through it. They've lived through it. They were here and a part of us digging out of that rubble. And the one thing that never fell apart is the foundation. The foundation of Indiana basketball never fell apart. And that's where the students that continue to stay with it come in. That's where the fans of this community and this state and this country that continue to support it with buying tickets and coming to the games came in. That's where the tradition of the former players and the former managers and the former coaches that would stay entrenched in this program continue to be a part of it. They wouldn't let the foundation crumble. They wouldn't let the rubble, okay, overcome to the fact that we could get in there and we could dig it out and we could figure it out. And that right now is why it is such a great place to go to school at Indiana University. Because you're walking the streets, you're walking the halls, you're walking Kirkwood with people that they were a part of that. They gained something in their life by sticking with a program when it was so easy to walk away from it. It was so easy to do something else because nobody could see where it was going. Nobody could understand what had happened. But it did, and that's life, folks. That's life. That's life. And in this life, as you go through it, and you start to understand that while you're going through college and while you're taking these classes and while you're working to get this degree, that since 2007, 52% of the college grads in this country are either unemployed or they are underemployed, meaning they are not in a position right now of working in a position of what they went to school for. You better look at that, and that can scare you, and you can say, what's the use? Or it can just absolutely fuel you to a point where you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you can separate yourself from the masses of this country and this world, because you go to Indiana, because you put your education first, and because you want to help other people be successful, because you've helped this program be successful. And I say all that as I move into basketball, because that is exactly where we are at. That is exactly where we are at. In late March of 2011, it really started to turn for us, because it had to. It had to. There were some players that needed to figure out, you're either going to figure out how we work, what it takes to be successful, that we're not here for you, you're here to make Indiana better, or it's time to figure out something else. We needed to have a group of young guys that needed to figure out, you know what? It's not about being young. It's not about my lack of experience, because being a competitor doesn't have an age. All right, being somebody that is a winner doesn't have an age. Being somebody that gives great effort doesn't have an age. I've got to do that. I've got to do that. And it was a group of people that finally figured out that it wasn't about what we didn't have anymore. It wasn't about the injuries that we had been enduring. It wasn't about the way that people were picking us to lose. It wasn't the way the opponents were coming at us and sometimes just pummeling us, and other times us being right there and just not being able to get over the hump. It wasn't about getting to that last 7 or 8 minutes and not having enough strength, toughness, mentally or physically, to finish the job. It wasn't just about stringing a ranked game together like Illinois, or a ranked game together like Minnesota, and then going and laying an egg on the road by 20 because we didn't understand that we had to keep fighting. Because every time that we won, or every time we got a little bit closer, there was just more of an opportunity for the competition to keep us down there. It wasn't about that anymore. It was about figuring out once and for all, we want to make a stand. We want to go somewhere. And individually, we're only going to be as good as the guy to our right, to our left, from behind us, in front of us, and we had to pull all those people together. And it wasn't like this program wasn't working for the first 3 years. It was, trust me. It wasn't like we were having bad practices. We weren't. It wasn't like we weren't going through practice jerseys because they were getting ripped and torn and fading because there's so much use. It wasn't like we were not throwing out gray t-shirts because eventually you just couldn't get the sweat out of them. You couldn't get the stench out of them. No. It was they were working. They weren't truly understanding what it would take to move forward. And last spring, they really started to do that. And then it carried over into the summer. And we started to see bodies change. We started to see minds changed. We started hearing in the summertime about games changing. We turned up our individual workouts in the spring to a point that we were accustomed to as coaches. Things that we had done at Michigan State and some of my guys from other places. Things we had certainly done at Marquette when we were getting that program to where it needed to be. And it was time now. We're not going to treat this with kid gloves anymore. We're going to push them even further. And luckily, we were preaching to the choir because they were listening. They were buying in. In the summer, they continued to improve. And the fall came, and all of a sudden, there was a different demeanor. And now these 3 new freshmen, Cody Zeller obviously had a lot to do with this. Remy Abel, who came in as the strongest lower body guy on the team and a guy that was the best at getting to the rim because of the strength and speed. Austin Etherington, who had won and had some athleticism and had some talent. Those guys came in, but they walked into an environment where the seniors, the juniors, and the sophomores, they were starting to really figure out, hey, if we really come together, we got a chance. We've got a chance. And what I learned through that, I learned a couple things. We're always learning. You're always learning. And the moment you think you're not is the moment somebody next to you is. And those are the people that are going to not be part of that 52% statistic rate when you get out of college. Those are the people that are going to understand how to communicate. Those are the people that are going to understand how to deal with adversity. Those are the people that are going to understand how helping others helps them. Not sitting and walking in somewhere and expecting that entitlement that comes sometimes in this life when we haven't had to work really, really hard. And that's why I say, being at Indiana, you've had a chance not only to do this in this great university, and not only have a chance to do that every day, you've had a chance to watch this program grow. And you're going to see it with that football program. There's not a doubt in my mind you're going to see it with that football program. You're seeing it in some of the other sports over a period of time, how they continue to build back up. Our volleyball program a year ago, they're coming off a Sweet 16 performance. They're young. They lose an All-American. They're not as good. What are they, 5-1 already? You know, it just continues to move forward. And you get a chance to witness that and be a part of it. Well, I've had a chance to witness it and be a part of it from a firsthand view, and I've learned a couple things. Number one, I've learned that competition is not really competition if the people that are competing don't absorb it. For us to talk about competition, for us to talk about this guy's here and that guy is going to work and this guy can do this and that guy can do that, it doesn't matter if the players don't really feel and absorb that competition. And then that competition is only as good as their ability and their willingness to push one another inside of it. What happens is, one of the hardest things, and you think about this in your life, you think about this in your classes, you think about this on the teams you've played on, you think about this, all right, maybe some roommate situations or something like that. It's so easy to just think about yourself. It's so easy to just think about your grade. It's so easy to just think about your homework and think about the things that have to get done. It's so much harder to think about, well, this person needs a little help from me here. This person seems to be struggling there. I think so much every time that the first couple weeks of the school year, when these new freshmen come in here, and they're in this big, gigantic campus, and we're known for a lot of things, but one thing we're not known for at Indiana University is sitting around on our hands on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, all right, getting to bed at 8 o'clock at night, okay, getting those 12 hours of sleep, all right, waking up the next morning fresh. All you got to do is walk around this campus or run early in the morning once in a while to see that. You know what I mean? We're up, we're moving around. People have fun here, okay? Well, I worry about that when new people come in. Are you as upperclassmen, when you see somebody out there and you see somebody that maybe isn't ready, that hasn't been through it, are you helping them? Or is it just as easy, yeah, no, I'm not going to talk to them. I don't know them. You know, let them do their own thing. You know, let them figure it out for themselves. I had to. That's not what Indiana's based on. That's not what success is based on. You got to help other people. All right, being demanding of other people, all right, that's looked at so much in this world, all right, as being a fault. No, that's a strength. That's a strength. Not necessarily having to act like you're better than somebody else. That's a weakness. Not necessarily being arrogant. That's another weakness. Not necessarily saying, well, here's the way to do it, and this is the only way to do it. That's another weakness. But being willing to stand up and say, let me help you. Let me give you some advice. Let me give you some guidance. Let me help you with my experiences when I dealt with this or I dealt with that. And you know what? Just because we're 44,000 here, just because we've got this great campus, that doesn't mean that we can't shrink it every day by helping other people and giving them some advice and being there for them. Because you start to think about it, when you walk into a new situation, there's so much apprehension. And you've got to be able to help people feel at ease. You've got to help make them feel a part of it. And that's what our team had to do last year. They had to take this competitiveness and they had to learn that everybody matters. And if we're all doing our job, everybody's going to have an opportunity. And if I'm not doing my job, you know what? I may lose my job. And that means that I better work a little harder, I better lift a little bit more, I better spend a little more time in the film room, I may get to know this guy, I better get to know that guy, I better spend that time and cook, and I better understand that all of us together, we can get something done. And our guys started to do that. The other thing I learned a lot about was the difference between motivation and inspiration. I always thought that motivation, and there's a lot of people making a lot of money, all right, running around, writing books and speaking, and they motivate. And they have seminars, and they're going to get you excited, and they're going to do it, and they're going to talk for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And you know what? Long-term memory for the average human being is 3 days. And that's kind of how I look at motivation. Now, inspiration, that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. And last year, when this program started to turn, in the sense of March, April, May, June, July, August, September, it wasn't about motivation. They were inspired to change. They inspired each other. Maybe it was knowing that they were better than what they had played. Maybe it was knowing that they were getting stronger. Maybe it was knowing that they were getting better on the court. Maybe it was because there were more and more people in the gym. Maybe it was because that if you didn't work extra on your game or spend that time, all right, you were going to stand out, not in a real positive way. It wasn't about the academics, because after that first year, these guys have been doing great. When next May comes or June and that new APR comes out again, we're going to be at 1,000 again. And that's going to be the third straight year at 1,000 after starting this thing in 2008. We started this in 2008 with a 2.05 at 811 in the lowest in the APR, and the lowest GPA in probably the modern day history of Indiana basketball, maybe Indiana athletics. We're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. So they were doing all that. They were doing great in school and building it, and our academic advisor, Marnie Mooney, is the most underrated person on this campus. I don't care who it is. I mean, that woman does so many things to make our players' lives and their the enrichment of academics and understanding what it takes and understanding how to push through and understanding how to gain confidence. And before that, with her, Maddie White, who worked with her, who is now an assistant AD in our athletic department, those two ladies did phenomenal things, do phenomenal things for us, especially Marnie, because she's still with us on the day-to-day. And she's a great example of what we had. We had all those things moving in the right direction. But until our players really understood that the inspiration was going to be what was going to drive them, was going to be the driving force, okay? Their drive would be the inspiration. We weren't going to take those steps. Because the motivation is now when the Big Ten, and they have this anonymous group of 24 media members, which is fine. I mean, I get it. I wish they put their name to it, but I get it. And they picked the Big Ten, and they had us pick 9th in the league. Somebody picked us, according to J.D. Campbell, who does an unbelievable job of finding things for us and digging into things that maybe we wouldn't find. Somebody had us pick 12th. I'm pretty sure somebody had us pick 13th, except they didn't put their name on it because they realized, oh no, there's only 12. I better pick them 12. You know, but our guys, they responded to that. Those were things that got their attention. And all the different things now that led into the year, led into the season, that might get their attention and they might respond to that. But that inspiration, that drive, had started earlier. And as we got into the season, people love to point to certain points of the season. And obviously, it's very easy to point to the Kentucky game. Anybody here for that? Anybody around at that game? Anybody here for that game? There we go, better. How many at the Evansville game? Okay, a couple. That's the game that got us going, because we went on the road, and there was nobody more uptight than the head coach, because this game was like, oh no, we're opening up their building. I think Marty Simmons is a big-time coach. They've got Colt Ryan. They've got these other good players. It's going to be 4th of July. It's going to be Christmas. It's going to be New Year's. It's going to be everything wrapped into one in that building. And we're going to have everything going against us. And our guys came out and they put on 51 points on the board in the first half. They realized that they could play this game away from Assembly Hall. And then I learned a valuable lesson, because I didn't coach with my foot on the gas pedal in the second half as much, because like, man, we just got to get out of here alive. And I put the brakes on our team a little bit. And I was mad at myself, and I told them that it was my fault that we didn't win by more, that we didn't push this even further after that first half, and we didn't make that mistake anymore. Now, we didn't win all the games, obviously, but we didn't make that mistake, because then we go to NC State, and we're down 7 with 7 minutes and 38 seconds to go, somewhere in that ballpark. And we have 3 straight possessions at the basket. It's a sellout crowd. I mean, they're a really good team. The coach there, Mark Gottfried, everybody should be as lucky as to walk into a team that's really ready for the NCAA tournament as he was. And I got a kick out of that, because he said, one of the quotes he had was, well, Tom Crean's been with his team for 3 years. I've only been here for 3 months. I wasn't walking into a team like that. And so I didn't have a lot of sympathy for that when we walked into that game. They were pretty good. And they were really good. And we were down 7, and we had 3 straight chances to score buckets on offensive boards. And we came to a timeout. And I said, we finally figured this game out. We finally figured out that toughness is going to win. We finally figured out that rebounding matters. And it was like our guys, when they went back out there, it was like the light bulb had gone on. Okay, we can do this. We just got to play tougher. And lo and behold, we did. We played better defensively. We made some shots. We got the rebounding edge at the end, and we won a big road game. And we had a couple other. The Butler game was a big win, because just how tough and physical and well-coached they are. I mean, they are a very good basketball team. And a game that we might have held on maybe at the end, and maybe we would have found a way to win, but maybe we'd have found a way to lose with 4 or 5 minutes to go. Those guys, they put their foot on the gas pedal and they went. They really went. And our crowd had a lot to do with it, but our players really finished that game the right way. Those kind of games created the Kentucky game, because the Kentucky game is something that where we sit right now. We played that Kentucky game with a mindset. Our mindset was not to play close. Our mindset was not to hang in there. Our mindset was not, well, let's just see where we stand. This will be a good test for us. You see me talking about tests. All right, come over. You feel free to hit me with a 2x4, because that's not how we think. All right, that's not how we think. I mean, we came in that game to win. We came in that game to make a statement to ourselves that we could play with anybody. And people always ask the question, it's replaced, when are you going to schedule this team? Are you going to sign this person? It's replaced with, what was wrong with your face after that game? What were you thinking? And we're still in the combat zone, and that's a little bit a part of it. But I was so mad that we came out of that timeout in the under 8 timeout, up 10 with a chance to crush them. And we came out and we thought we were going to win it by ourselves. We started breaking plays. We didn't get the ball into Cody the way it needed to be. We started doing things that were uncharacteristic of who we needed to be. And fortunately, we won the game. And there's no way I'd give back that drama of that win. And I don't think anybody would give back that drama. I know ESPN wouldn't give it back, and Christian's not giving the ESPY back. So, and there's no doubt about that. But we learned a valuable lesson, because 2 things happened that week that made me realize when we came back that we were getting ready to have a chance. The 2 guys that really, Cody set the screen, which was phenomenal, because he was supposed to set it in the backcourt. He read how Verdell was being played and he backed up. And he hit Teague on that screen, and Teague stopped. He stopped. He recovered, but he stopped, and because he never saw the screen coming. Another great example of why you got to have communication on the court. Jordan and Victor cut. We'd sent Victor long because really, in all honesty, we felt the only chance we had to win that game with them having the fouls to give was to get an intentional foul. And we moved Victor up hoping that they just might grab his jersey and we've got a chance, all right, to get that intentional, because I thought they were just going to foul and we were going to run out of time. Jordan gets open. You got to guard Jordan Hulse. But Verdell and Christian, obviously, the pass, the shot. When we got back to practice on Monday, those 2 led the way on what kind of practice we were going to have. And I'd be lying to tell you that I didn't have a few doubts about that going into that, because they all of a sudden, these guys were somebody. And they weren't just somebody in here and in this campus. They were somebody around the country. And those 2 came in, and the practice that we had and the way that they led that practice made me believe that we had a chance. Well, I saved the film for a couple of days. And we watched the highlights of the game. We watched the shot. We watched some of the threes. We watched the attitude. We had the crowd volume really turned up. And you could hear it. It was phenomenal. And then we watched that under 8 timeout. And it was not pleasant. I wasn't pleasant. I'd stopped swearing. So, I mean, at least I was better there. I stopped that a year ago, so I was much better then. I didn't slip. I was close, but I didn't slip. But it wasn't for the faint-hearted. And you know what? Again, I think I was preaching to the choir. Because you win a game like that and you go through those last 8 minutes and you don't play your best. And you don't even play close to your best. And they know it. Now we're moving. Now we were starting to create an identity. And that led to the Ohio State game. That led to some of the other road victories that we had. Certainly led to the Michigan State game. We didn't quite understand that, and that's where we get into the goals of this year, how important it is to be able to play through adversity, play through another team's best shot, have your defense carry you when certain things aren't working for you, how to stem the tide of a run for the other team, because the bottom line is you got to make stops. You've got to get stops. And we didn't do that enough at times. But fortunately, we did it enough to get the 24 wins, get into the conference tournament, win the game. We did not guard the kid at Wisconsin, Wilson, nearly good enough, but we were in that tournament. And again, driven and inspiration versus responding with motivation. All of a sudden, you had people picking against us when we played New Mexico State and people knocking us out of the first round. Our guys responded to that. They responded to it. And they went into that game, and we got them down, 20, 21, 22, I don't remember what it was. We knew we were playing a good team. Our guys respected the opponent. Well, then all of a sudden, there weren't too many people at all picking us to win the next game. And we knew we were playing against a really good team, a team that I think was even better than the one that had played in the Final Four the year before, because that guy is a phenomenal coach, Shaka Smart, with a great staff and has a great plan. And we knew we were going to be in for a fight there. And our guys, they rose to that challenge. They rose to the challenge. And the same things that got us in the Kentucky game, stay with me on this and see if you can see where improvement comes from. The same things that got us, where we didn't blow Kentucky out in that game or have a chance to really stretch that lead, that didn't affect us when we played Michigan State. That didn't affect us when we played New Mexico State. And it didn't affect us when we played VCU. They stayed in character. They stayed with each other. Different guys stepped up at different times, but they stayed with the plan. And everybody was moving. And our movement without the basketball was as good as it had been all year long when we got into that NCAA tournament, including the game against Kentucky, where we scored 90 points. We shot a tremendous percentage. We had 21 layups or dunks in that game, and we missed 5 in the second half. 1 in the first half, 5 in the second half. Our guys were moving without the basketball. But again, I parlay it into now where we're at. A couple things have to change for us. And that's when the process of where we're at. Number one, our physical strength has got to be better. It's got to be better. If your physical strength is better, your mental toughness has really got a chance to get better. Your conditioning and your endurance has got that opportunity. And there's different ways to test that. There's no question that the bench press numbers, the leg squat numbers, the chin-ups, the pull-ups, all the different things that we can measure, that Janae Jackson, our outstanding strength conditioning coach, handles for us, and Chris Virtue, who's his assistant. What they handle, I mean, we can measure and we can see it coming. We do another thing called a VO2 max test. It's a treadmill test. It's something that we've been doing since I was with Coach Izzo at Michigan State. I know Tim Garl had done it in the past. We did it at Marquette. We do it here. They've been doing it forever here. And our guys have had good numbers in the past, but this year those numbers started to take off. And guys started to really build that. And what it is, it's an endurance test. It's a how hard are you working test. And it's how much can you endure. But they're always trying to better their times. And we had a couple guys really take it to another place. Jordan Hull's got a 12:36, which was the best of the modern day. It was the best number of the modern day. And to give you some context of it, 10:30 is pretty solid. You get to 11, you're doing a pretty good job. 11 minutes on that treadmill. Well, parlaying into the players and how physical strength and how improvement and how your best players have got to lead the way, not just in the scoring, not just in rebounding, not just in magazine covers, but they got to lead the way in work ethic. They got to lead the way in raising the standards. Jim Thomas, who played back in the 70s, was a phenomenal player. And played with Isaiah, played with Randy Whitman, played with all those guys, was a starter on that team. Dr. Rink and Tim Garland said that he had done the treadmill test at 13 minutes back, and this is back in the 70s. So that's the overall record. Jordan was holding the modern day. All right, Jim was holding the overall, and then Will Sheehy came in. And Will Sheehy, when he got back from a little break, went 14:06, as they say, went 14:06 and jumped off the treadmill. Didn't fall off the treadmill. Jumped off the treadmill like, look at this. See what I did. A couple of guys that were in there, they were convinced he could have gone another 30, 45 seconds to a minute. Now, I say that story, and it's something that we haven't talked about, but I give you that because that's what has to happen. You've got to take what your goals are and what you've really got to get better at. And you've got to have everybody understand it. Like everybody has to get stronger. Everybody has got to get quicker. Everybody's got to put some weight on, but be able to explode that much more because you score through your shoulders. You drive the ball through your shoulders. You defend with your feet, with your chest, with your hands, all those different things. So you got to keep building your body. Well, you got to have a couple guys that they're more than willing to go out there and raise not only the team standard, but their own standard as an example. And that's starting to happen with us in that physical strength area. The next place that it's got to happen for us that is going to be just absolutely crucial for us as we move forward is our fundamentals. We got a lot better fundamentally a year ago. Fundamentals sound so boring, but they're the essence of it. They're the absolute essence of it. Your technique, your ability to attack, your ability to play low. There's so many little buzzwords and phrases that we use, but the bottom line is you want to take things that are hard and make them look simple because you've done such a good job of building your fundamental base. Our guys are starting to do that. Great example for us right now is Cody Zeller's as fundamentally sound a player that I had ever seen at 18. Forget coaching. Without a doubt, he was the most fundamentally sound of coaching. He's the most fundamentally sound I'd ever seen or even heard about at that age, because he was so well coached by his father, by his brothers, by his high school coach, Gene Miller, by his summer coaches. I mean, he's seen it. And he came in with those fundamentals. Well, Cody sometimes, what he's pretty good at, he'll stick with. But what he's pretty good at and what he'll stick with and what his capabilities are the difference between him being an NBA All-Star and playing for NBA championships someday and just being a pretty good player at the next level. So Cody had to lead the way with how do we stretch his athleticism? How do we stretch those fundamentals? How do we give him even more confidence? And my whole thing is, okay, if we're gonna play against us, we can probably find just about anybody that could look at our team and say, you know what, we better start with Cody Zeller. Okay, I don't think we just have to look and say the other Big Ten coaches are the opponents. That's where it's gonna start. So we had to get to a point this offseason with no matter what you do in your office at Purdue, at Ohio State, at North Carolina, at Butler, at Northwestern, whatever it is, no matter what you're doing to prepare for Indiana, prepare for how Cody plays, that he can go above and beyond that. That there's no real plan for what you do with your double team or how you're gonna take the ball out of his hands, because he's so secure in his fundamentals and so good at reading and not predetermining what's gonna happen that he just takes his game to another level. And if your best player, and if a guy like Cody can lead the way with that fundamental improvement, well then nobody else has got an excuse. That's exactly what's happened. We've had Cody working in as much ball screen pick and roll as Jordan, as Victor, as Will, as Remy, as any of them. We've had him working on stretching his athleticism. We want to get him to the point where he's on one part of the 94-foot, he can get to the other rim, okay, in 2 dribbles. Right now it's at 3, all right? And you say, was he ever going to need that? He probably won't, but he needs that mindset. He needs that mindset. And that's how you take your best players and you keep saying, okay, are our best players getting better? And if our best players are getting better, everybody else is going to fall in the same line. And then the last thing outside of those fundamentals, and I'm just using these guys as examples, in the essence of time, but we've really got to get better defensively. We've really got to get better defensively. When you start to look, I don't need to hear the clapping, okay? I watch the films. All right. But we've got to get that field goal percentage defense down, because the great ones do. When you start to look at the teams that were tops in the country all year long, like Kentucky, like Louisville, like Ohio State, like Syracuse, people like that, Kansas, those people, they defend. They defend at a really, really high level. And our field goal percentage defense has got to get better. See, we made so many jumps offensively from the year before. From the year before, I think we went from like 152, 162, something like that, overall in the country, in 3-point percentage offense to number 2 in the country, number 1 in the BCS. We cut down our fouling big time, which made a big difference for us. We went from being probably somewhere in the mid 150s, 60s, 70s in free throws made per game to number 1 in the country last year. That's hard to do. It's hard to be a great 3-point shooting team